Hi there. We're live today with Stephen Durost. He's the executive director and owner of Create, a center for expressive arts, therapy, and education in Manchester, New Hampshire. You all know that Candy Castle on Union Street? Well, that's the doctor's office. He's made that into a clinic of psychology. Stephen has been awarded the Heroes of Justice Award by the YWCA Crisis Service Center for his work with male sexual abuse survivors and for being a first responder in human trafficking. His counseling work centers on trauma recovery, and his research focuses on the meaning of aging for people over 65. Today, he's here to talk to us, our audience, about tools that we can use to overcome anxiety and fear. So welcome, Doctor. Thank you.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here.
Thank you. I have a question.
Sure.
Why are all these people hoarding toilet paper?
I think we'll be studying that one for years, but I'm pretty sure it has something to do with comfort.
Okay.
And a normal activity.
So staying normal in their activity allows them to have a sense of security with their day-to-day?
Yes, and we'll talk about that a little later, you know, what normalizing activities can do for us and really kind of help us through this time.
Okay, so the reason that you're here is because of coronavirus is out there, and what I see is in the community, I see a lot of people who are fearful and facing anxiety in an already heightened anxiety culture that we live in. So now this is just enhancing that a little bit more. And you run a clinic of several hundred people that you counsel on a day-to-day basis. What are you seeing in your practice? What are you seeing at this point? What changes are being made and what's happening in your world?
Yeah, so within the last 10 days, really, even 2 weeks, we have moved all of our sessions off-site. So we're now doing completely telehealth meetings with both the clinician and the client off-site. And that's been a huge change for us in the field because we're trying to make that personal connection with people in a very different way. And Create is a creative arts therapy center, and that's why I chose the castle as a place to be. So our clinicians are showing amazing creativity in being able to connect in very human ways and very interactive ways, even though there's a screen between both of us.
Right, and I think we're all having to get used to that virtual sense of being. I know in my business we are using our mediums of video and camera as well as computer and interacting more with our clients that way as well. So I think we're all changing, and I know education is changing that way for our children and our college kids. They're all doing everything online. So we've had quickly as a society to change into that way of functioning. So what does that do for us? How does that put us on a different level as far as anxiety and fear about the future?
Well, it's certainly, with transitions that happen so quickly and levels of uncertainty about where we're going or how long this is going to last, people's anxieties are just higher. And of course, people who are already living at a heightened anxiety, if you add to that, it puts a lot of us in that really, kind of deer in the headlight place. And so it's really important if we look at kind of Maslow's hierarchy of needs, which has levels of things that we need before we can get to higher thinking and higher pieces. Food, shelter are like the first thing we need. And then there are other levels. And for children, to be able to learn well, one of my clinicians has given us a format for that in relationship to what children need in order to have the best learning. And it follows this hierarchy of need. And so when we're thinking about anxiety, when we start to kind of move backwards through this, our anxiety goes up. And when we hit kind of that core, where are we going to be? What are we going to eat? And I think some of that has been hit. There's been a lot of people getting food and stocking up in this because it goes down to that level. And so it really hits our core human essence in some ways. And so there are ways of working with our anxiety, and I think about them in kind of 4 different categories.
Okay.
The first category is really the physical. So the physical piece is those things we can do for our body. And I think of those in relationship to New Start, this acronym, okay? So the N in New Start is nutrition. It's really watching that we have good nutrition, that we're not just binging on Twinkies and such, but that we have good nutrition, and really that regular time of eating is still adhered to, that we make sure that we're having meals and not just grabbing the potato chips because, or whatever our comfort food is, but to really watch our nutrition for ourselves and for our family. So and the E is exercise. Our body has to move. When we were talking about this level of need and stuff, we're really talking about our body going to a fear response, like the responses we have when we're really faced with something that we think is life-threatening, okay? And so we can have different responses: fight, flight, freeze, fawn. And so moving helps to push that stuff out. So when you feel that anxiety, just getting up and doing something rather than just sitting there is so important. Whether that's getting up and walking, walk the dog, even if you've done it, 5 times in 2 hours.
Right.
Dog's not going to mind.
Keep going.
Yeah, just keep going. Move around the room, do some jumping jacks. Changing that is really going to help alter that freeze response that we can get into when we get into kind of cyclical thinking patterns. The W is water. So New Star is water. So making sure that we're hydrated and that we keep things going there is really important. That we, just like before, when we're all drinking our bottles of water, stuff very important. The S is for sunshine, and if the sun would help come out, that would be really nice. But any kind of sunshine takes about 15 minutes of sunshine a day in order to create the vitamin D that we need.
That's all.
Yeah, that's
15
all.
minutes.
It's not that long, but so we want to make sure that we're getting that as much as possible. And then the T is for temperance. I know that's kind of an old word, but it really means moderation. So there are things that we definitely don't want to do. You don't want to go and eat poison ivy, or batteries or something like that. But temperance on other things. When we look at kind of coffee is a stimulant. And so if we're already anxious, a stimulant in us is going to keep us going. Actually, alcohol is a depressant. So if you're struggling with that, it's going to be, an impact. So really, let's look at those things, especially during this time. Because it would be very easy to start using them as crutches to get us through. So really, temperance, moderation, looking at those things, and it's all right. I know I mentioned Twinkies. It's all right to have a Twinkie, but maybe not the whole box.
Right. Or Girl Scout cookies right now.
Oh, yes.
Thin Mints, like eating too many of them. Yeah, that would be it. Temperance with Girl Scout cookies.
Yes. So really looking at that. The A is for air. We need to keep breathing. If you have those moments and you're just like, oh, I stopped breathing. Or I haven't had a good breath in a little while here. Stop and breathe from your belly. Just let that drain. And several good breaths can help to really drain what's there. And then, acts of meditation, yoga, anything that helps us with slowing down our breathing. It takes about 10 minutes for the system to really get the benefit, to really click into starting to get the benefit of deep breathing activities. So, you take your breaths and stuff, but if you do an extended time, kind of push it past 10 minutes. It's really interesting. The body goes, this is nice, and then it goes, what am I doing? Then it thinks of other things, and then it starts to settle in.
Yeah.
And you can feel that shift in your body once that you kind of hit that 10-minute or so mark. So that's what we're aiming for, but keep breathing. Keep that air going in and keep it deep inside you, filling it up and letting it out. Rest. With heightened anxiety, rest is sometimes hard. Our minds are, going through a lot of things, and it's really just hard to kind of just be in that space. But regular patterns again, keeping our regular sleep patterns, a good sleep hygiene, making sure that by hygiene you start half an hour before bed. I brush my teeth. If you comb your hair, if you have some, whatever
Right.
it is that you need to do. So that by the time you're in bed, you're not with your electronics, you're not with your other stuff, but you can really ease into the sleep and make sure that you have enough time to get a full night of sleep. And with all the work and stuff that we're doing right now to keep ahead and keep our families ahead, easing it, having that regular sleep is going to be so important. So rest, and then trust. Trusting in something larger than ourselves is part of this. And that doesn't mean just God or Gaia or Buddha or whatever, but nature. You know, just being able to look and go, wow, I was walking on my property today and checked the maple syrup trees and noticing that there were buds coming out.
Oh, yes.
You know, and it was just a little bit. And I was like, oh, you know. It
is awakening, and it is refreshing to see the newness of life, whether it's in a new baby or in a bud on a tree, or for me it's the crocus coming out of the ground and it says, ah, this is new. That's very refreshing, so I can appreciate that.
And so really just letting that in ways that maybe we didn't before.
Yeah.
You know, music and creativity and are all part of those things that are bigger than us. You know, dancing and movement that just help us to really expand that there is something larger and that we can enjoy. So really connecting. So those are the physical, you know, so new start, nutrition, exercise and water, and then sunshine, temperance, air, rest, and trust. Okay?
Very good. New start.
Very solid things we can do to help our body be in that right place for this time. You know, and then I think about environment. So our body's got to be somewhere, right? So, you know, what does our environment look like? You know, is it clean? Is it cluttered? Is it, you know, nice colors? Does it really help us, stimulate us? And what do we need to do to change that in order to make our environment, especially during this time, help us and comfort us, okay? But also the people that we're with. You know, we may not have much of a choice, you know, if we're sheltering in and stuff like that. So what can we do? How can we make the interactions rich and more wonderful? And how can we lessen the stress? And then also that we're still reaching out and connecting with people. You know, I showed my mom how to do a Zoom meeting yesterday so that we, you know, so that everyone could stay in touch and see each other, where we usually just talk on the phone. So it was a nice way of connecting and, you know, that she's learning. So the environment is really important too. Then normalizing activities. That's that next one that I'm thinking about. So once we've got our environment, what do we do there? And what we do in our normalizing activities, I'm thinking, is getting up and showering.
Right. Normal things.
Normal things,
right.
You know?
Brushing
this
your
isn't
teeth.
brushing your teeth.
Yeah.
You know,
instead of getting up and hanging out in your pajamas and getting online to do your work, get up and get ready to go to work as if you were going to go to work, right?
Exactly, because, well, for many of us, we are going to work anyways,
right.
You know, even if we're home. So it's very important that we look professional anyways, but also that, you know, that just that structure of getting up and doing the things that we did at the times when we used to do that, our body's been doing that for days and days and months and stuff, and so it really just helps the body to go, oh, I know how to do this. I don't have to think about this too much. And so we get up, we shower, eat breakfast.
I think about that with, not to interrupt you, but I think about that regarding children, especially with our parents that are home right now with all of the kids, excuse me, and just keeping them on a normal routine so that it will keep their anxiety down and letting them know that, you know, we're still functioning very normal with mom and dad, or mom or dad separately, whatever, in their world, but to keep them on a normal schedule in their physical environment, right?
It's so true. Their schedules are so important. These are normalizing activities. And so even though school may not be at school, school is now here.
Yeah.
So that transition can be much smaller if the same time frames are set up. And of course, a lot of the schools have done that, which is great. But the parents really having to be there and help is really, this is school time, this is recess time, this is, you know, lunchtime. And so to really keep those in place as much as possible. And that bedtime, you know, just because they're out of school doesn't mean that this isn't school time and that they get to stay up till, you know, 11, 12, whatever.
I'm pretty sure most parents are trying to put them to bed pretty early anyway, so I'm pretty sure that's not
even
an
if
issue.
the kid isn't. You know.
That's right, you're going to bed.
But even for those who don't have children, a regular schedule and what you're going to do, planning out the day, you know, maybe there are some things that you kind of want to learn or do that you didn't get a chance and you're having a little more time to do them. That's great. Or maybe, you know, that project around the house that's been being put off, you know, might be a great thing to do. Painting a room and changing the environment there would be a normalizing activity. And like what I like about painting or doing something like that is you're moving too. So it's really helping that to be in movement and doing something.
Yeah, I've gone to the other extreme. I not only painting one room right now, I've decided I'm painting the entire house. So I don't know how long this will last, but we have started a project that I hope gets finished in the middle of all this. So,
excellent.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then kind of the last piece is our thinking. You know, so, you know, kind of it comes back into our body. Our head is our body. I mean, we think about our head and our heart and our head and our body. It's all one, you know. And our mind is our body. So keeping it well is part of helping it. And then how we think is another part of how we get through this. And if we think about ourselves as being hunkered down because there is this virus enemy coming at us to attack us, we are going to have a very different stance than if we say, you know, we as a global community are coming together in this time to be able to get us through this, to get us to the other side, and we are acting in solidarity. We may be in different places, but we can be in different places and be unified. And having that attitude moves us from a victim stance of we're waiting to be attacked to a place of I'm doing what I can and a place of power for ourselves. And that's such a different mindset.
Right, think about that. It's basically the difference between being a positive person and being a negative person, right? And we go back to talking about surrounding your environment and creating an environment around you that's positive. I think about all the things I'm reading online right now from various places, not just in my Facebook social media account, but also in my emails where it's constant, hey, this is what we're doing about coronavirus, this is what we're doing. And all these vendor people, merchants and such are telling us how they're doing that. And honestly, I'm tired of hearing about it. I mean, we know to wash our hands, we know to keep our distance, we know all the things we need to do. If we could just take an active role in being positive, like you said, and how can I contribute to this and make it a better situation for everybody? And that's where the Damon Home Team comes in at Remax Insights. So I'm going to just throw in our little commercial right now. And it's really not. It's just letting you know out there that we care about you. We care about what you care about. And that's what's important to us. And that's the reason the doctor's here today, is just to help my audience, the Damon Home Team's audience, just learn a little something and be able to apply it to make your life a better, happier place. So again, back to you, doctor. We're talking about anxiety and fear. Let's talk about the difference about that, anxiety and fear. What is the difference between those two? So
all of our emotions are natural. They're the way that our body tells us to do something, to respond to something. You know, I think of depression or sadness as something went wrong in the past and I can't change it, and that's why I'm sad about it. But the things we do with the past is learn from it. That's what the emotion is there, for the most part. I mean, there's some variations to give me a little liberty there. Anger is something's going wrong right now, and I need to do something about it, okay? And it's our response to it that can make it a good thing or a bad way of responding. But we're talking about anxiety here, and anxiety is really something might go wrong in the future. Or we start to look and go, oh my goodness, this might go wrong, or this might go wrong. And the way to respond to that is to plan, okay? And so we have anxiety. That's what we do with anxiety. You go to the refrigerator, and there's one egg. And it's anxiety, it's worry that says, oh, if I don't go to the store, then I won't have eggs for breakfast tomorrow. Okay, so we go to the store, you know, and get the egg. And that's what I call a life-enhancing level of anxiety. It informs us that something needs to be done. So I think about that as kind of a 1, 2, or 3 level on a scale of kind of 0 to 10. And I don't really see anyone as having a 0 level, because that's not really that great. Maybe the surfer dude in California, like, hey. But we all have this normal amount of anxiety. Because it's important to have for us to plan. So that emotion is normal. Absolutely normal. So it's good, it's okay. It's there for a reason. Right. Okay. You know? But some of us kind of live at that 4, 5, and 6, or we have things in our life that push us into the 4, 5, and 6, which I call as a life-annoying level of anxiety. It drains us. It kind of takes away some of our energy. But we still do things. We're still able to engage and stuff. It's just that we kind of always feel it, okay? And then that 7, 8, and 9 level, I call, it's life-impacting levels. So it's a life-impacting level of anxiety that really gets in the way. We maybe stop doing things, or we're so overwhelmed we can't even think well. And that's kind of when it becomes diagnosable, when we're kind of living at that level. And 10 is I'm having panic attacks and such, you know, that kind of level. Fear is a little different. And fear is when we are kind of, it's moved into a level that we are afraid for our lives, or we have some kind of level of just, it kind of hits that 10 and all. And there, like I said earlier, we have our fight, flight, freeze, and fawn mode. So we really go into a trauma response.
And that's at the fear level.
That's
so
the fear
we've graduated from the 10 on the anxiety level we've jumped into fear.
Yeah, into total protection mechanism.
We've had the panic attack, shortness of breath, all of that. And
well, we may not have had the panic attack, but we're now having a fear trauma response.
Okay.
And what it is, it's protection. All these responses are protection. Our brain in a moment has to decide, what is the best way I'm going to get through this? And it might choose fighting, fleeing, fawning, or fight, flight, freezing. So, and whichever one it might. So think, you're about to be attacked by a Tyrannosaurus Rex.
Yeah.
And in that split, in like a nanosecond, the body says, if I fight, I'm probably not going to win. If I run, I may not get away as well. If I freeze, that's an interesting thing, since Tyrannosaurus Rexes are reptiles and maybe they won't see me,
Right.
So and I might fawn, which is to kind of go along with something. And it makes a choice really quickly. So we can see some of this coming out, in people's responses, to toilet paper and stuff is, we're going to kind of go and get hunkered down and stuff. But, turning that level down, the thing that's different about this than a Tyrannosaurus Rex coming after us is that we're going through this as a global community.
Right.
We're not alone.
Yeah, we're not alone.
And we have to keep that up in our minds, because if we look around, and I think this is one of the reasons why things are proceeding particularly this way, which is a really, actually, with a lot of trauma responses, people who go through trauma go through it alone, and they hit those others. When we go through it as a community, the first thing we do when we're in a trauma response is look, is there a community around? And when there's the community, we generally don't move into those other pieces.
Good point.
And that's what's happening, is people coming together as a global community, as individual communities. We're really working on this together, and so we're having different response there. And as long as we keep doing that, as long as we keep pulling together, we can move through this very, big situation in a much different way. And, we keep our anxieties, manage our anxieties, try to get our 9s down to our 7, keep our breathing so that maybe we can get down into the 4 or 5 level.
Didn't you talk once about, in our communication, about when you are anxiety level 8, 9, 10-ish, that you're basically spinning at that point, doctor, and you give us a tool that we can use to bring that spinning down into the normal, or the average range anyways.
Yes. So, when we hit those places, when we hit kind of in the bigger places and we start to move towards those, the trauma responses, our brain shuts down because it wants to protect. It wants to protect itself. And so it doesn't use resources to go to these different places. It doesn't use resources to do processing. It doesn't do resources to do digestion and stuff like that. And that's why people are having a lot of problems with their digestion and stuff. And just as a side note, a lot of our serotonin and our good chemicals are made in our gut, which is another reason why our nutrition piece has to be on point. It's so that we can create the good stuff that will help us through this.
So there's a good connection between the gut and the brain.
There's a complete connection.
So healthy here could be potentially healthy here.
No, not potentially. Absolutely.
It is. Okay.
Yep.
Good.
So when we're
probiotic.
So when we're in that spiral mode, really is looking at what do we do here. It's really hard to to pull oneself out of it. Okay, we're in there. We're in there. So movement, like I went through, movement.
New start.
Yep, new
start.
Go
back to new start.
Go back to new start. Get your movement. Get your water. Water, actually, it's one of the reasons why after like a massage or something, they give you water.
Yes.
It's helped to reset the system and stuff. We're telling the body we're safe. We're telling when you're running away from Tyrannosaurus Rex, your digestion system is offline. When you take the water, you're telling the system, I'm safe. I'm drinking, I'm safe. So we're giving it a normal activity and it's resetting itself. So when we're in those kind of spiral places, is to move, to go back to this is a global community, I'm not in this alone. And here are evidences why. And so our brain really likes when we give it reasons. And so when we're in the spiral, we're giving it reasons, probably lots of reasons that seem negative or could be negative. But when we're in that, if we can kind of hang on to something and amplify the reality, like we're in this, we're all in this, we're not alone. There are lots of people working on this. And so kind of like moving from that place into the larger place, really important.
Okay, very good. So I love that we have learned a new tool, actually several new tools if we use that acronym New Start, that will give us a lot of different ways to minimize the anxiety and the fear levels that we have going on today. So I'm excited about that. Doctor, before we leave and conclude, do you have any advice for what's happening out there right now and for other than what you've already given us, to stay focused on, I think, helping and being positive? So tell me what you have for our audience today.
Yeah, so the thing that I'd like to leave is that one of the reasons I work with trauma and is because people who have gone through these experiences are the most courageous people I know. I sit with people who are amazingly resilient and courageous, and maybe they don't feel that in the moment, but I see it in everything I do. I see it in their in who they are, and I hear it in their stories. And what we find in trauma research is that there's something called post-traumatic growth. It's the growth we get after going through a really bad situation. Now, that doesn't mean that we'd ever want anyone to go through this in order to get this. But there are things that we know, and that's where resiliency shows up. If there's nothing to be resilient about, you would never know you had it.
Right.
But we know, as a human race, as individuals, that we will come back because we are resilient. We have seen courage through this at amazing levels. We've seen people join together in a community. We've seen people taking their part and doing it well. I was at a store yesterday, and we're pushing carts, and you'd think people would be like pushing their carts through and people were just smiling at each other, keeping social distance and smiling. And I was like, gosh, this is great. We all know that we're here, and it is a fearful time, and we can still be pleasant,
Yes.
So we get psychological benefits, we get emotional benefits, we get cognitive benefits from these things. Physically, we might take care of our bodies better. We take care of socially, we get more respect for the people in our lives. And we are able to spiritually sometimes expand our spirituality. So all of these things in areas of our life, we find ways that they expand through these times. So I know it's not a quite short thing. If I was going to put it in a short thing, is that we will get through. Yeah. We are resilient. We are courageous. And there will be things that will grow out of this that we never knew about ourselves and about our community that will be good, that we would have gotten no other way, but will be there. And I look forward to those.
Yeah, thank you for that. And just in final notes, I just want to say that in my experience, we've been through, as a community here in the New England area, we've been through 9/11. We've been through the Boston Marathon situation, and remember how hard that was. I remember just being in tears at the end of that day. We've gotten through that. We've gotten through Zika. We've gotten through Ebola. We've gotten through a lot of different situations as a community. Mm-hmm. And I reflect on what you've just said in saying that we've always come out stronger. We've always come out better people. Mm-hmm. And this will change the way that we do our life. But I think it'll be something that is, we're ready for change. We're ready to do that, whether it's telemed or whatever the case might be, or it's virtual tours, even more enhanced in a technology world as far as real estate goes, or I think about all the different sectors, and as I'm calling and talking to people, I'm wondering how this is affecting their world. So go ahead and ask somebody, how's this changing your world? Because it'll be enlightening for you to hear that. We are the Damon Home Team at RE/MAX Insight. I am Suzanne Damon, and we're happy to bring this to you. I'm hoping it was helpful. So share the post, share the information. Maybe it'll be helpful to somebody else, but thanks for being here today, and we'll catch you on the other side.